Hello, this is Munchin' Crunchin' Michele, and you're listening to episode number 26, How to Reduce Stress with Food. Welcome to the I Cut the Mustard show, where you'll learn how to stop stressing, stop stress eating, and start fitting into those skinny jeans. Because whether it's belly fat or bloating, stress stinks. But don't worry. You've got what it takes. You're sharp enough. You cut the mustard. Hello, guys. So we've talked a lot lately about reducing stress with our thinking and how stress is emotional and mental strain. And so if we can change our thinking, if we can let those emotions come through us, then we're not going to be so stressed out. And I've emphasized how it's not the circumstance, it's your thoughts about the circumstance. We're going to roll with that a little bit more today and talk about how to not stress with food, but also how to use food to reduce our stress and use food to reduce the stress on your body, right? Because it's undeniable. Also, it's undeniable that hormones play a role in our mood, and exercise plays a role in our mood, and food and mood are totally connected as well. So I don't want to miss the fact that physical things totally can make it easier or harder for us to think good thoughts and process emotions and to feel wonderful. So today we're going to dive into some of the physical things as well. But first, let's talk about our thoughts, because I love that, right? A lot of us are totally stressed out about food because in news media, it's so confusing. All of the information about food is confusing. One year they'll say that eggs are so bad for you, and then another year they're like, oh, eggs are the best thing for you ever. And then another year they're saying, oh, low fat is great. That's the perfect thing to do for your body. And now we've got keto, which is the exact opposite, right? And all of these things, all of these messages through the media are confusing for us. And I think it's easy to say, just give up and say, I have no idea what to eat. The scientists don't even know what to eat. So how can I even figure this out for myself? But I'm going to give you a couple tips on this. Number one, news media is not the number one source for science. It's just an interpretation of the world, like everything else is a story. And as we all know, news likes to look for exciting stories, especially contradictory ones and ones that are controversial. And I find this true for myself, even as I am advertising or as I'm trying to make videos for Facebook. What are the things that people are going to watch? It's going to be drama stuff, like I'm divulging my problem with overeating and then a million clicks. But I'm like saying something more mild like, oh, increased digestion. Nobody wants to listen to that, right? So we do it to ourselves through social media. The media does it to us because we like to kind of listen to drama. We like to be shocked in certain ways. So the things that come out in news media seem contradictory because that's what we want. But if you take it back to the science and you really dig into all of the scientific literature, then it becomes very clear what the best diet is. And I'm going to cite again recently whenever I went to the heart disease and cancer conference that I went to recently, there was a woman there who was talking about breast cancer. She was writing a book about breast cancer. She was a doctor, and going into the book, she was not vegan or plant-based. And through the course of writing the book, she decided to change her diet because the science was so clear in so many ways. She just couldn't deny it. That's the best solution for breast cancer. That's what we're going to do as a family. So take the news media with a grain of salt, because it's there for a certain reason, and then science is there for a reason. Your body is there for a reason. So I want to give you some power back here, that you have the ability to figure out exactly what you need in your diet, and you don't have to stress about it. It doesn't have to be confusing. So here's how to do it. All right? Be a scientist yourself. Okay? all that scientists are doing is they're going out and they're looking for trends. They're running experiments. They're observing. They're writing things down, right? You can do that same thing with your body. Many of us are just unconscious about what we're eating and how it makes us feel, and you don't even realize it. So if you start to build an awareness of what am I eating, what is it doing to my body, and really start looking at the correlations, then you'll quickly notice which foods are great for you, which foods are not great for you. So now I want to get into the science. So hopefully you can be stressing less a little bit about what to eat. It's not so confusing. The science is pretty clear. You can go to nutritionfacts.org. He goes through tons of scientific papers and explains it all in detail there if you want some logistics behind everything. But ultimately, you're a scientist. Your body's your experimentation lab. You can figure this out for yourself. And even when you go to a dietitian, they are just giving you recommendation based on the observations that they've made for people as a whole. They might not be right for you. And there's really no way for them to know how many fats you should be eating or how many carbs you should be eating. And don't drive yourself crazy, because we know that the reason that you're not losing weight or you're having bad digestion is more than just food. It's about your stress. It's about what you're thinking about the food. It maybe is about your environment and other things that are going on. So do your best to observe and follow through on what you learn about your body, and trust your body that it knows what it's doing better than your brain sometimes, right? So let's get down to the science a little bit, though, because I think that'll help you understand as you go through and observe what's happening in your body and start to do experiments with the foods that you're eating. Let's give you a little bit of background about how to interpret those results so that you know what's going on, because I think that can be a little confusing. So first, let's talk a little bit about addiction in general. And I'm going to use topics that we can all agree are addictive. Sugar, let's start there. I think most of us can agree that sugar is very addictive. It's been scientifically proven. I don't know if it's true or not, but they say, it's just like cocaine, or has the same effect as cocaine on your system. But basically, we know that it has a chemical response. It creates a chemical response in your body that creates a pathway in your brain, and it releases dopamine, which makes your body want it more. So it craves it more. So the more that you eat these foods, the more that your brain becomes dependent on them, and your body becomes dependent on these foods, and it starts to think that they're essential for its survival. Because your body is so amazing, and it is so good at adapting to bad environments. So it's trying to make the most of things. So if you're pumping a lot of one thing in, it'll counter it with the opposite thing. So for example, with alcohol addiction, they talk about how you start to need more and more alcohol to get a hit. And that's true for sugar too. But whenever you drink the alcohol, it's so stimulating or whatever. And you eat the sugar, it's so stimulating. So your body counters it with sort of like a depressant to make it so that your brain isn't overwhelmed by that stimulation. So the more that you put in, the more your brain counters it, and it kind of lowers your ability to feel in general, right? Because there's a lot of extra like anti-stimulant hormones going on. I'm not giving you all the scientific terms here, but that's kind of what's going on. So we know that whenever you stop eating sugar, you get uncomfortable, because the brain is still producing like that opposite effect. So you stop eating sugar, then you start to feel yucky, you start to really crave sugar. And when you eat sugar, it gives you that relief again from those symptoms. But it's not because sugar is amazing and relieving and something fabulous for your body. It's because your body's used to eating too much of it and has started to counter it. So now it's uncomfortable when you don't. This is true with a lot of foods that we put into our body. Dr. Furman calls it toxic hunger. There's just a lot of foods that we eat that aren't really food. They're not really that nutritious. It's the processed flours. It's the processed foods. It's we take nuts and we dump them in sugar and we roll in oil and we roll them all up and we smash them into a bar, right? Or we put protein, we take peas and we extract the pea protein and then we add all this other stuff and we smash it into a bar, right? And it looked nothing like the original item. So all of these things are kind of so far away from food. Our body doesn't really know what to do with them. It's putting a lot of stress on your body and it's making it toxic. So your body's doing its best to counteract that. And then whenever you stop eating, it starts to feel uncomfortable because your body's starting to detox. So let's say you sit down and you eat a meal that's high in processed foods, it's high in meat and dairy products. Then a couple hours later, you're going to start to feel uncomfortable. You're going to get hangry. You're going to feel yucky. Maybe you'll be kind of shaky, right? So these are a lot of the things, a lot of symptoms that we think are hunger. Like, oh, I got to go eat something because I'm feeling yucky. I'm feeling shaky. I'm feeling moody. And so my body's just so weak. It can't handle this. And I need to eat every 2 hours. So if you go into your experiment, let's say that you start experimenting and trying to figure out what does my body need, let me really listen to it and respond to it, then that's where it can get tricky. You can see those symptoms and you can think, oh no, there's something wrong. My body's weak. It needs food. And then you can keep fueling the process. When really what your body's doing is it's trying to get rid of the junk so that it can make room for more food. And whenever you feed it again, that's just giving more junk to it on top of more junk, on top of more junk, and you're kind of stuck in this cycle. So that's one thing just to be aware of while you're experimenting with food, that's going on. Another thing that's great to know whenever you're starting to experiment and listen to your body and relieve stress with food is how blood sugar works and how insulin works. So I'm going to explain it here. I don't have a diagram, so I hope it's going to work out okay and that you can really visualize what I'm talking about. But recently, over the past several decades, we've been going towards more of a paleo, keto, Atkins, low carb diet because whenever we've done these experiments on our own body, it seems like when we eat carbs, we feel gross afterwards. So carbs must be bad. Sometimes even good carbs, they make me feel gross, so I can't eat them. But whenever you start to understand insulin, blood sugar, and how those work, and insulin resistance, you'll see that just like the cravings and the toxic hunger that we just talked about, just like addiction, your body is kind of sending mixed signals, or you might interpret the signals from your body in the wrong way. That's going to continue the process rather than alleviate the problem. So let me give you the example of Cyrus and Robbie, who are coaches for the Mastering Diabetes program. I'm kind of obsessed with them and I follow them and see what they're doing. I follow them around. But I just really like how they explain things and how they're doing their program. So they share their story. Both of them are type 1 diabetics. They figured that out in their teens, early 20s, and they decided to do what the doctor said and go on a low carb diet and eat plenty of protein and vegetables and stay away from fruit and carbs. And for both of them, they explain how they did that for a while and it worked for a little bit sometime. For one of them, it worked for a little bit because a lot of times I guess there's like a honeymoon phase for diabetes. So it worked for a little while, but then slowly they started to feel less energized and their symptoms were getting worse. They were taking tons of insulin in order to control their diabetes. For both of them, they discovered the plant-based diet and the high carb approach, which whenever you think about diabetes, everybody just wants to scream like, how can you do high carbs on diabetes? And their message is to eat high carbs on diabetes. And they went to a whole food plant-based diet that's high carb, low fat. But after the switch, their insulin resistance improved, meaning that they ate tons of carbs, but needed less insulin to control their diabetes than they did before they made the switch. So one of them was talking about eating 700 grams of carbohydrates. Like, that is insane. He was an athlete too, but that is insane for anyone, not just diabetics. Whenever we see that number, we think, oh my goodness, how can you even do that? That sounds like that's going to be terrible for your body. But for him, he noticed making that switch meant that he had more energy. His insulin he reduced his insulin by 40%. So many amazing things happened. And because of that, it fueled his desire to understand the research behind it and help other people to do the same. So if it works for diabetics, it works for you, because we all have blood sugar and insulin works the same way in all of our bodies. And one of the major problems in today's society is prediabetes and obesity and type 2 diabetes, which also contributes and correlates with heart disease, which is the number one killer in our country. So this is really important for all of us, right, to understand this concept. So the reason that a high carb diet works, even though it seems counterintuitive, is because the problem isn't carbs. And when you understand the mechanics behind how insulin works, then you'll see why you're getting mixed signals and why the high carb diet works. So let's dive into that. All right, here's where I'm going to need you to visualize, but I'm going to give you an example that hopefully will work for you. And I'm going to take it from my favorite book, The Three Billy Goats Gruff. All right. So we've got the billy goats. They're on one side of the bridge. There's a rushing river, and there's a bridge that goes to the other side of the river. And the other side of the river is full of grass and daisies where they can eat and get fat. Right. This is my analogy. All right. So let's say that where they're at on this side of the bridge is your blood vessels, right? You eat food, your body breaks it down into glucose, into sugar, which is your primary energy source, and it puts that glucose into the blood vessels, and the blood vessels takes it to your muscles. But imagining those two sides of the bridge, one side is your blood vessels, the other side is your muscles. It's your physical muscles that you use to pick things up, but it's also muscles like your heart and it's also your brain, right? So everything in your body needs energy. It needs that glucose sugar to come. So we're going to pretend that the billy goats are the glucose sugar, and you just ate something and it turned into sugar, and those little billy goats are the sugar, and they need to cross the bridge to get to the other side where they can frolic around into your muscles. They're going to get into your muscles where you can frolic and be happy and have the life of your dreams, right? So whenever the sugar goes into your muscles, you have energy to do whatever it is that you want to do. You'll have to respond and tell me if this analogy makes sense. I totally just made it up. But so that's the glucose. The glucose you eat something, break it down into sugar. So let's pretend that's the billy goats. It has to cross the bridge to get into your cells, which is the other side, in order to give you energy. So the bridge is insulin. The bridge is insulin. So your body needs insulin to take that sugar from your blood and put it into your muscles so that you can have the energy that you need. That's how this works. So traditionally, we're thinking you eat sugary foods, so that just dumps too much sugar into your blood, and that's why you have high blood sugar. But that's not the problem. The problem is there's an ugly troll blocking the bridge. Insulin is not working. So you eat some food, it breaks down into sugar, but then that sugar is stuck on the other, on that side. It's stuck in your blood. It can't cross the bridge because that ugly troll is there. Okay. So then you have high blood sugar, you feel yucky, and you think that the problem is what you ate. But actually that troll that's blocking the bridge is the problem, right? It's not the sugar. It's the fact that the sugar can't get from your blood into your muscles. It can't cross the bridge. So what is that troll that's blocking the bridge? It's fat. So whenever we eat high-fat foods, they interfere with our ability to absorb the sugar. So then even whenever you eat, let's say you eat a high-fat meal, but you eat good carbs like rice or beans or something, then same thing, even though they're good carbs and they're breaking down and more slowly maybe, you might still feel gross because that good sugar can't cross the bridge. It can't get into your cells. So insulin resistance and diabetes aren't caused by sugar. It's not a sugar problem. It's a fat problem. So let's talk about sugar though, like refined sugars and processed foods. Whenever you eat those, their body instantly converts them into sugar. So let's say there's just tons of goats. It just sends tons of goats to that side of the road who all want to cross the bridge. And now the bridge is blocked because you ate fatty foods too. So now you've got a big problem, right? So you can have a big problem. Or if you eat less processed carbs like sweet potatoes, regular potatoes, brown rice, and you put that into your body, then it's a slower processes the sugar slower, and maybe there's like a line of goats that want to cross the bridge, right? So there could still be a higher blood sugar in that instance. So in order to maximize the system, to maximize the energy that your body can get and to reduce stress on your body, what we've got to do is limit our fat intake, even good fats. So get rid of oil, get rid of meats, get rid of that coconut oil that everybody thinks is amazing right now. And then that'll clear that bridge. It'll kick that troll off the bridge. And then instead of eating tons of processed foods and just dumping a bunch of goats onto that side of the bridge, you're going to eat good carbs, and you can eat lots of them, as much as your body needs, but you eat good carbs, and then there's just a nice, neat little line of goats who are going to cross the bridge. They're going to get to the other side all neat and tidy and give you a constant stream of energy and goodness for your body. I hope that makes sense. So that's what's going on inside your body. There's tiny little goats in there. No, not really, but so that's what's going on inside your body, and that's why it can be confusing. That's why carbs are given a bad name. And I just want to say here too that for a while, the reason that the keto diet and the paleo diet keep coming back is because they work. They work for a little while, right? If you really reduce the amount of sugar going into your body, then you're not going to notice the yucky symptoms. There's not going to be a buildup of sugar in your blood as much because you just don't have sugar. But that doesn't mean that you don't have a troll on your bridge. And actually have lots of trolls on your bridge. And in fact, the trolls are multiplying and they're getting into your bloodstream as well, right? That's what's happening with heart disease is the fat starts to build up in those blood vessels. That's why the blood vessels get blocked. It's fat that's blocking them. So if you reduce the fat, those blood vessels flow more smoothly. You have more energy. You can wipe those trolls out, right? And you can start eating healthy carbs that will get you the energy that you need. All right. So that sounds great, right? This has been a fabulous episode with goats and trolls. You're going to remember this one, right? So I just want to sum up before we go how to reduce stress with food. Number 1, you can stop stressing about food when you realize that the news media does not have the answers. It's not your number one source. News and blogs are not your number one source for nutritional advice. Go get some nutritional advice from people who look at the scientific studies and can interpret them for you, like nutritionfacts.org. Number 2, stop stressing about food because your body knows just what to do. It knows how to take care of itself. It's so great at surviving and adapting to anything that you throw at it. So you can start to listen to your body and interpret the results that it's giving you. You have the ability to heal and have an amazing, energetic, wonderful life. Number 3, we also realize that food isn't the only problem. Stress and environmental factors, exercise, sleep also has a huge impact on how we're feeling. Stress being a big one, because that's what we talk about on this podcast, right? So whenever you get those other things worked out, you don't have to be so crazy and calorie counting and minute about the things that you eat. You just have to listen to your body and respect what it has to say. Number 4, we talked about how to reduce stress with food for real on the physical level, what's going on inside your body and how to reduce stress there. And we talked about food cravings, that there are certain foods that are toxic to your body and they are creating a cycle where it's giving you mixed results whenever you're trying to listen to your body. It's giving you mixed results and make you think that you need sugar and food all the time, but really it doesn't, and it's just trying to get rid of the junk that you ate before. So in order to reduce the stress on your body, we're going to stop eating processed foods and eat plenty of nourishing vegetables instead. Then we learned through our analogy of goats and trolls that the best way to reduce stress on your body is to stop eating fatty foods, is to really reduce the amount of fatty foods that you have, because then those goats won't be stressed out when they're trying to cross the bridge. The troll will be gone, right? So whenever we reduce the fatty foods, then our blood vessels can flow more freely. We're not going to get heart disease because it's not going to be blocking up our blood vessels. We can reverse heart disease. We can reverse diabetes by eliminating the number of fats that we have and starting to replace them with good carbs, with whole food carbohydrates like grains, beans, squash, potatoes, berries, and other fruits, and just enjoy life. These are the wonderful foods that you want to eat anyway, because your body's kind of telling you, hey, those look delicious. It's all these colorful foods, and your body is craving those things, I promise. And whenever you start to take out the junky foods, the processed foods, the oils, the salt, and the sugar, you're going to notice that that's what your body really wants. It'll start to detox, and then you'll stop craving those on a physical level. In other episodes, we're talking about how to stop craving those things on a mental level. So you can be free from food. You can absolutely find the diet that works for you. Get yourself out of confusion and fit back into those skinny jeans. Alrighty? As always, if you love this episode, share it with a friend, and I'll see you tomorrow. What's one thing that's really been weighing you down? Are you ready to kick it to the side? Then join me for a Stress Less call today, where you'll learn the number one mindset tool that I use to stop stressing and find relief right now. Go to icutthemustard.com/stressless to sign up for that call today.